The Wellness Show, episode 78.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. Welcome to The Wellness Show, and I'm excited today to have Ellie Savoy on the call, a best author on Stop Dieting and Start Living. This is a topic that's dear to my heart. I don't know about other people, but this yo-yo of losing and gaining weight, I know it's emotionally connected, but I just can't figure it all out. And you're going to help us because you've got 5 Ps. So what are these 5 Ps? Well, first of all, tell us a bit about who you are and how you got to write this book.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. So I was a yo-yo dieter for over 25 years. And it could have been for as little as 5 pounds. But at my heaviest, after I moved to the States, and I always joke and say, nobody was forcing me to eat these massive portions. But anyway, I was 30 pounds heavier. And it just became something that was always in my mind, this food conversation. And in 2011, I was diagnosed with 2 uterine fibroids and given 4 options of dealing with them. 3 involved surgery, 1 was a hysterectomy, and the other 2 other surgical options, and then the 4th was to do nothing. And I knew I had not been really taking care of myself as a lifestyle. It was something I was in and out of. It felt, it was a good idea when I was exhausted and had to rebuild my strength. But once I was sort of up and running again, I would just go back to my old ways. So I did some research and I found a homeopathic approach to healing my body. And in that, dealing with that, I realized I was really enjoying taking care of myself. And then the excess weight took care of itself. So for once in my life, I was free from dieting. And it wasn't something I was constantly doing. I mean, I just put up with excess weight for periods of time. But we tend to think that we either have to be overweight or on a diet. And there's no sort of in between. So I didn't know I would write a book. I didn't know I would be teaching this. But the 5 Ps, when I looked back over how I got to where I am, it was I made myself a priority. That's the first P. I stopped pretending about my reality. So I stopped making excuses. I stopped pretending I wasn't having wine at the end of most days, things like that. I changed my perception about it's too difficult, it costs too much money, it takes too long to make a healthy meal, this type of thing. And then 4th P is a plan. Most people spend more time planning a vacation and a house renovation or decorating a room than they do what they're going to eat for the week. And the 5th one is passion. I developed a passion for myself, for taking care of myself, for loving feeling well. And this passion piece is just as critical as the other 4, because let's say somebody wants to learn to play a new instrument or learn a foreign language. Initially, there's passion. It's not, I must have the patience to learn this, right? It's passion. We're fueled by passion. And so I discovered this passion of taking care of myself, of really enjoying feeling well. So since 2011, it's become a lifestyle. And it wasn't that it wasn't like a bait and switch. It was gradual. And so it's just as natural to me these days as brushing my teeth and getting dressed. And I love to teach it so much and help others find this freedom, because there are so many people struggling with this problem. And the dieting industry is worth over $60 billion.
Wow.
And there's so many quick fixes. And so it just keeps people stuck, like I was, in this trap. And the only way I believe, to make this lasting is to make it a lifestyle, not something that we're in and out of, not sort of pigeonholing ourselves into one way. So I don't advocate all juicing or all raw or all of anything, because we're all unique and we can't possibly have a one size fits all when it comes to taking care of ourselves. So I teach and show the fundamentals. It's like building a house. You have to have a certain order of events for it to last. If you try to put the roof on before the walls, of course, it's not going to be possible. And just a quick analogy around that, it's what I've seen and how it was for me as well for many years before I broke the madness was, for example, I used to think a cleanse was a good idea. But if it's not already an extension of a healthy lifestyle, it's very difficult for most people. So it would be like trying to put the roof on before you've got the walls up. It's just not the right sequence for something to be sustaining. So I'm very common sense, if you can tell.
I can understand that. I've heard that if you just all of a sudden start to do a cleanse out of the blue, or you're going to have a toxic overload as you go into your cleanse. So it's not something you just want to start without doing some preparatory work for, or even getting emotionally, psychologically ready for the process. It's not, you put your body into shock and then you got the consequences of that you need to deal with. At least that's my limited understanding.
Yes. It depends. You're absolutely right with the toxins. And if somebody is very overweight, because, you know, toxins are stored in the fat cells. And so if somebody is doing a long detox, even a long cleanse, needs to be very carefully monitored. And to me, because I'm all about common sense and simplicity, it just makes sense to do these things gradually. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. You don't build a house in a week.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like these things take time. And so we need to take the steps towards having something that lasts, not just something that's another short-term approach to this issue that so many are facing. And there are so many different cleanses out there as well. I personally don't advocate a long cleanse. My husband and I actually do it twice a year. Mm-hmm. Springtime, when it feels right to us, when it feels warm enough, not like still chilly, because it's just when it's cold, you need warmer foods. And then we do it in sort of late summer, just before fall begins. So we did it a couple of weeks ago, in middle of September. And it just feels nice. And for us, it's not a stretch, because we are juicing and having smoothies as part of our lifestyle. So we're not sort of switching to something that's really foreign to us. It's just that I believe in giving the digestion a break from chewing. And we do 3 to 5 days. We have no side effects.
You have no side effects?
Sorry? Nope, we have no side effects, right. You know, since we've been on a better, healthier path, which is wonderful, because the body doesn't have as much to clean up like it used to in past years. You know, we don't get headaches, we're not fatigued. Just feels nice, really just feels nice.
Now, when you do your cleanse, are you doing it with water? Are you doing it with juice? Are you doing it with electrolytes? How are you doing it?
Oh, good question. We like an all liquid cleanse. So the first drink of the day is a juice made from, you know, we use a Breville juicer. Juicing is a very big topic because there are different types of juicers, and that would be too much to get into in this interview. But I typically put in celery, cucumber, ginger, lemon, let's see, I'm trying to think quickly here. An apple, a beet, Swiss chard, and I think that's it. There's about 7 or 8 things I put in there, and it's lovely. And that's the start of the day. And then the other drinks are blends. And I know people get confused, I used to, about what's a juice and what's a blend. And so a juice is what extracts the pulp. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is not eating a lot of fiber, then obviously to juice all the time wouldn't make sense, because even though you get a pack of nutrition from juicing, you're removing the fiber.
Right.
So, but when you do the blend, everything is in there. You're not removing anything. And so everything is real food. It's all organic. This is the way we eat every day. And so they're just tasty. They could be soups, like a cucumber soup, a vegetable soup. So rather than it being completely smooth, like say a vegetable soup, it's chopped up very small in the Vitamix, but it just has a bit of a texture to it. Sort of makes it a bit more interesting. So we have 6 drinks a day. And the last day we end with, at the last drink of each day, we end with a nut milk drink.
Wow.
Sometimes we do get a bit hungry, but for the most part, it's very doable.
Oh, that's interesting. So if I understand you correctly, which that was really interesting, is that, you know, juice is with no fiber, and we're just processing our apples now, and we just got our champion juicer, which you haven't used, got it up and realized that we can make incredibly good apple juice out of it. So we just had fresh apple juice this morning. And then the next step is a blend, and where you're using your Vitamix, you're not bringing it down to liquid form. There's still some crunchability, fine texture to it, if I'm understanding. And then the last stage would be doing your smoothie, right, where you really do blend all of it together, both your fruit and your vegetables. Did I get that right?
More or less, yes. Very good. The last drink is a nut milk drink.
Right.
The last drink of the day, but some of the drinks in the Vitamix are completely smooth. So let's say one of them is blueberries and strawberries, like a berry drink, and that will be smooth as possible.
Right.
But most of them are just completely smooth.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. I was just making that distinction between the 3 different stages, which I hadn't even thought about, between juicing, let's call it smooth, and smooth, you know, or what you call the blend, and then a smoothie. I like those. I never understood those 3 categories before. I never heard of it. So that's really quite helpful. So do you start your day with a smoothie?
No, not always. I start my day typically with a glass of water.
Yeah.
We actually have a Kangen water machine, which has it's ionized water. It goes through you know, a process that produces a very alkaline water. So I usually drink and you know, I don't want people to get overwhelmed with this information. I've worked up to this, but so I have a nice glass of water with lemon, and that acts as a good detoxer. It really gets the things moving. And, you know, as soon as we can have that first bowel movement of the day, as soon as possible, that's always a good thing for our bodies. And then I have, it depends. I may have a smoothie, but I actually like to chew when I wake up. So I will have something like goat yogurt with some sunflower seeds and maybe some granola. Right. Or I will just have, I like the Ezekiel cereal. I'm more of, well, it depends. You know, I go back and forth between protein and carbs, but one of the biggest things I've changed is my portion sizes. I just don't eat massive meals anymore, no matter what time of the day. But I do believe it's important to have breakfast, because, you know, we've been fasting all night. So breakfast is like the 2 syllables, break the fast. Right. And that really gets going, because I exercise most days. So I'm off to a class typically around 8:30. So I'm up early to make sure that I have enough time to have something to eat and be ready to have a good workout.
So how long is your workout?
Usually 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the class. I really love to spin. I love Pilates. And now they've incorporated the bar, you know, like the ballet bar in the gym. And so we're doing exercise that's really kicking all of our butts. It's wonderful. Really kicks it up a notch. And I like to do a stretch class on Wednesdays. That is absolutely fantastic. So I think it's important to have variety like it is with our food, because if
Yeah.
we're always having the same stuff or doing the same things, we get bored, don't we?
Yeah. Well, let me just review. You've given 3 hot tips for those that are starting this process that I think are important. And that is, number one, start your day with a good glass of alkaline water. And if you understand how to put intention into water, then please do that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just Google Dr. Emoto and look at what intention does to water. So that's really a good tip. Everybody can do that. The second tip that I like, which I found was absolutely true in my life, was to cut your food intake drastically. For me, I'm in my 70s, so it meant cutting it by 50%. And so that was a big change in helping me lose. And then the third one is regular 45 minutes of exercise. For me, it's every other day. Sounds like for you, it's almost every day. Is it every day for you?
No, not quite.
No.
Probably 5 times a week.
Yeah, mine's every other day. So those are real 3 hot tips that if you did nothing other than that, you're really going to start the journey of where you are to where you want to go weight-wise, and really effortlessly. At least that's what it was like for me. So it's a good way to start. So what other hot tips do you have for Joe and Martha Average out there that are listening in to get them started on this lifelong journey?
Well, if anybody is interested, they can certainly grab a free copy, a complete copy of my book at my website, elliesavoy.com. It's the PDF version, but it's the whole book. It's not just a snippet or a chapter. And really embrace those 5 Ps.
Yes.
And it really gets people thinking, because women especially, I know men are busy too, but women are sort of the natural caregivers and are taking care of everything and everybody else, and often forget about themselves, when in fact, if we don't feel well, nothing else can really be done as efficiently or as effectively, because we need our health and we need to be happy and healthy. And it sort of gets into the mind, because so much is mindset. And it's sort of like calling people out in a nice way, not like sort of giving them the 2x4 over the head, but just saying, hey, if you are pretending, it's okay, we all do it. But maybe you haven't realized that you're pretending. And if you are, once you realize that, then you can start to change it. But what happens is we try to change too much too soon. So this is a really gentle approach.
So what are some of the great pretenders that you're aware of?
Well, things like how many times a week do you eat out? And people will say once, maybe twice. But when they really look at it, it's maybe 5 times or more. And I'm not just talking about at a restaurant, where you're sitting down. It could be just grabbing something from a deli or the drive-through, or coffee and a donut, anything that's purchased outside of the house, even from a vending machine, all these types of things. People often do have a pretty good idea of how much they're doing, but it's difficult to face it. It's difficult to own it, because it means for many that we're wrong. And it's not about being right or wrong, it's about awareness. And if we don't know things exist, then we just can't change them. Mine was, I used to just, buying gas, putting the fuel in my car meant chocolate bar. And so every time I fueled up the car, I would fuel up myself with chocolate. But if it didn't make it home with me, it kind of didn't exist, if you get my drift. It was like, okay, I can forget that. But, and then I could easily eat a whole thing of cookies. Seriously, I could just eat the whole thing. But in my mind, it was like, well, I only had 6, or we just play these games. It's just mind games. Or, you know, some people love potato chips or ice cream, and they'll just eat the whole thing and then feel really bad about it, instead of just saying, okay, maybe I'll, you know, try and cut back on that, or that wasn't a good idea, I won't do it like that again. But just to own it.
Right.
Just to really just not beat ourselves up, not be unkind to ourselves. That's a big one. It's that sort of, you know, chatter in the head, oh, you're not good enough, oh, blah 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 blah. And it's not necessary, but we all do it.
Yeah, I like what just came to me, and is you know, it's not right nor wrong. It's just being healthy. So you don't need to beat yourself up about this. It's just, you know, the choice is to be healthy. So give yourself.
Yeah, I actually in my book I talk about, I prefer to use the words nutritious or non-nutritious rather than good or bad.
Right.
And then it removes those labels that we're taught as children. And so if we think of something as nutritious or non-nutritious, we're more likely to be aware of making a better decision instead of just diving in for whatever's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more we make these choices of nutrient deficient foods or meals, it's just a downward spiral. You know, we become more and more depleted physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Right.
Instead of like thinking, how much good can I do for myself today? Even the smallest things add up to so much. And oftentimes it just feels like such a mountain for people to climb. So it puts people off from ever getting started. And I remembered that, you know, when I got to my heaviest, it was, oh gosh, how did I ever get here? You know, it didn't happen overnight. But I'm just so thrilled that I call it, it was my gift in disguise, these uterine fibroids. It was, it just woke me up. But prior to that, my parents both died within 21 months of each other. And that obviously was a whole lot of grief and really got me thinking differently about my life. But it wasn't until I had my own diagnosis that I really started to take self-responsibility and stop the excuses and stop putting everything and everybody else before myself. And I really feel like, you know, I'm in my 50s now, and I just feel like I'm in such a good place in many ways. Just so much, everything is so much easier. Like wherever I go, it comes with me to the extent that it can. It's like I'd always pack my toothbrush and my clothes, you know, so I always take what I can for where I'm going or where I'm staying. So it's always on my radar. You know, even if I'm running errands, I have some food with me from home. We very rarely eat out anymore. And when we do, you know, we kind of do our homework a bit, because there's a big social side to eating out. So I'm not telling people don't eat out, but to really start to break away from the madness of dieting. I was speaking with somebody the other day, and I came up with to say, oh, I love saying I'm KISS, K-I-S-S specialist. Keep it simple and sustainable. And so if we don't keep it simple, it's just not going to last. And so it's not going to be sustainable. So sort of think of that KISS, you know, keep it simple, stupid, I think is the real meaning of it. Yeah. But keep it simple and sustainable. And it will take people a long way. Just keep it simple.
I like that. I use it a little bit different. I think keep it simple and sacred, but sustainable and sacred. That's they both work together really well. I was thinking about sustainability. You know, when we think about sustainability and you know, and the environment around us, it's that biodiversity that makes for a healthy environment, and that's really what you're talking about, is the biodiversity, both of what you eat, but also the biodiversity inside of your body, all that flora and fauna in your gut. You want as many different varieties as healthy inside of you to keep you going. So it's like healthy environment outside, healthy environment inside. So I think the word sustainability is a really good one. It really helps you think about what it is you're eating And then the clue that you said was, I'm about to stuff something in my face. Is this nutrition, or is this nutritious, or is it not? And that's a good one, right? Is this potato chip really nutritious? I don't think so. And we need to play these sort of games with us ourselves, I think, just to make ourselves aware of the choices that we're making. And like you said, don't beat yourself up. Just know that if you're going to be bad, be consciously bad rather than.
Yeah, just know that it's not the best choice,
Yeah.
but every choice is still a choice.
Yeah.
And whatever choice we make, just own the choice.
That's right.
Drop the judgment, just own the choice and enjoy whatever you're doing.
That's right. And really enjoy it. Just be aware that that whole bag of chips is not necessarily going to be a good total joy, but there are consequences for it. Yeah, I love your approach. It takes people off the hook. It really does bring joy back into their lives. That this is all doable. This is not rocket science. It's, one step at a time. There's some simple things you can do. When I think of what you were saying about how much people spend on this roller coaster of yo-yo diets and up and down, and how just the pulling of hair and the agony that causes, and the grumpiness of people because they are not getting the nutrition they need in their body at the right time. It really is a bit of a mess, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's a trap. There's really no glory. I'm trying to think of a word, but that's the one that came to me in any of that. It just leads us down dead end roads. For me, my pattern was always I was a workaholic, I loved to be busy. And so I would overdo it constantly. And then my body would have to stop because I would be exhausted, very unhealthy. Thankfully, the worst extent of it all was uterine fibroids. I didn't get some chronic disease, thankfully. So now I'm very aware of inflammation, and that's known as the silent killer. And it doesn't necessarily just exist in people that have extra weight. It's any shape or size. It just depends upon what we're eating, drinking, and the stress levels. Stress is huge for everybody today. I'm not sure we will ever get rid of stress, but we can certainly be mindful and minimize. I don't believe in stress management, because why would we want to manage it? We don't want it in the first place.
Right.
So I just think it's about being aware. And again, making a choice in that moment. I can go off like a rocket because I'm a hothead, not as hot as I used to be, but I'm aware. Oh, this isn't worth getting so worked up over. And if I do get annoyed, I don't stay there. It's not prolonged. As soon as I'm up, I'm calm again. So I just think, I know who I am. And that's another piece. If we know who we are, we can tune into that more. If we then embrace them. Don't try to deny them, because the denial part will make us want it all the more, until we figure out what's underneath it. Why do we want it so badly? Why do we want something morning, noon, and night, for example?
Right.
So, as Tyson, we're not just this physical body. We're so much more. But this is our vehicle. So if we don't take care of it, we're just going to be broken down and not going too far.
Yeah, when I think of stress, it is the silent killer. And when I think of stress, it's really either I'm worried about what happened in the past, or I'm worried about something that's going to happen in the future. But if I can dwell in this now moment and eat consciously, then there's very little stress. I just need to dwell in this moment. Because every time I think about, this moment isn't exactly the way it should be, I'm trying to create a reality that doesn't exist. And then I stress myself out. Now that's, I can say that, and it's pretty straightforward. But to live it every moment, with every breath, with every thought, with every word, with every deed, But, I'd rather be skinny and healthy than skinny and stressed out. I mean, lots of people lose weight because they're stressed. Boy, that's really hard on the body. So we're getting near the end of the show. We're not quite there yet. Well, I just want you to let people know how they can work with you. Do you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do group coaching? How do people get hold of you? And then last but not least, what would you like to leave the audience with?
Sure. Well, I mentioned my website, elliesavoy.com. People are very welcome to go and grab a free copy of my book. But if they want the real copy, the hard copy, it's available on Amazon as a paperback and actually Kindle and Audible. I recorded the book, and also on iBooks. Yes, I do one-on-one coaching. I offer, and remotely or in person. I also do VIP days if somebody wants to do a deep dive into really getting a handle on all of this, and they want to see quicker results rather than take it out over a period of time. I love doing group programs with people. I think, we get so much stimulation from each other when we're working in groups. And I also speak at events if people want me to reach out to me in that regard. I would love to do that. And something to end with is, we only had another half an hour, but let me think of something quick. Just go easy on yourself. We live in such a noisy world today. There's some really great information, but there's also rubbish out there as well. And if, this type of marketing, like lose 10 pounds in 10 seconds or make $1 million in a minute, it's just ridiculous hype, and it's just false marketing. So we need to get back to basics. It's so noisy. We're so distracted. There's so much to take us off and away from simplicity. So sort of just bring it all back in. It's so interesting that I was raised in England with my parents lived very simply. And as I got older, I wanted more and more and more, and to break out of that mold. Not that I had a terrible childhood by any means, but by having more and doing more, it got me in such a mess that I've now returned back to simplicity and the common sense I was raised with. So people are craving that these days. They're really craving. They don't know quite what the answer is in many ways to simplify their life. And I know that once we do, and of course we can if we make a choice, and we really start to slow things down, say no more often when we don't want to say yes, and really reclaim our own space, our own minds, our own bodies. And we can do that just by making a choice. So I say to people, just as soon as you listen to this, decide in this very minute right now that you want to make a change, and decide how you want that to be. And of course, I'd love to be support to people.
Ellie, it was a pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Tyson. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.